Hey there guys, welcome back, Ricky here. So I want to take a few minutes and talk about the 5 biggest myths I have come by on my channel. Myth number 1, you have to use fancy equipment to sharpen a knife properly. This drives me crazy. Look, I have fancy equipment here because I've invested a lot in my channel and a lot in my equipment that I use. If you guys watch many of my videos, you'll see I use a brick quite often to actually elevate my whetstones, and that's really all you need. And to catch water, you don't really need a whole lot. You can buy a food tray, like a plastic food tray for $3 to $4. I use a silicone mat because the silicone mat is really nice and portable. And then all you need is some sort of rubber lining or a towel between your brick and your whetstone. That is it. That is all you need in terms of a sharpening base. And certainly, look, there's nothing wrong with going out and buying a $25 bin plus a $100 bridge, or a $200 sharpening pond from Sharpen plus another $20 rubber base. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you have the finances to go and do that, please do so. It's all good. So the myth of fancy equipment, no, busted. You don't need fancy equipment to sharpen your knives with. Myth number 2 is a funny one because I've gotten a comment recently that says pros sharpen on whetstones and non-pros sharpen on electric sharpeners. It's almost like saying unless you are a chef, you shouldn't cook, and if you're not a chef, you should have TV dinners or frozen dinners. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. There are many comments on my channel saying that knife sharpening is 90% technique and 10% accessories or goods. I want to take that even a little bit deeper and say that knife sharpening, it's all about willingness to try, right? If you are willing to try and to experiment, you will be able to sharpen your knife. So I'm not downplaying technique at all, please understand that. But what I am saying that, in my personal opinion, what's even more important and what's even deeper than technique is your willingness. I will leave that there. You can extrapolate whatever you want from that little comment, but I will leave it there. Myth number 3 is you have to thin a knife at every sharpening. Oh, this drives me crazy. The whole topic of thinning a knife, I think it's one of the most over-debated argument from knife enthusiasts. And there are circumstances that you need to thin your knife, but for 99% of the people who are sharpening their knives, who are watching my videos, who are cooks in the kitchen, knife thinning is not something you have to worry about for a very, very long time. If you guys have seen my channel in the last 6 months or so, you have seen me restore a number of knives. And 2 of the occasions that I've restored 2 shoons, they actually had about 3 to 3.5 millimeter gouges on them. And so even me shaving down 3 millimeters of edge, I still didn't feel like those edges needed to be thinned. So think about this for a second. How many years do you think it would take for an average knife user to actually grind down 3 to 4 millimeters of their knife's edge? I mean, that takes like a decade, if not longer. I've spoken to many chefs who have been using the same whetstone for 20 plus years, and they've never thinned their knives. As a matter of fact, they've never sharpened their knives. Listen to the chef who actually makes a living using knives. You don't need to thin your knife out. It adds a whole different layer of complication. A number of these chefs tell me that all they do is hone their knives every 3 to 4 meals. And that's all they do. They've been doing it for decades. When I ask them how do they thin their knives, they look at me and just laugh, or they kind of just look at me and... Myth number 4, this one also drives me crazy, is that you have to flatten your stones before or after every sharpening. If I get a nickel, well, maybe not a nickel. I want to make it very clear, I'm not trying to say that this is not important. If you are a sushi chef and you are sharpening yanagibas for a living, to make a living from it, this doesn't apply to you. You don't need to flatten your stone every single time. Now look, there are certain cases that you need to do that, such as sharpening a yanagiba or a deba or a single bevel knife, where that is kind of important. But for those of us who are just sharpening knives in the kitchen, chef knives, Western chef knives, or even Japanese chef knives, you don't have to worry about flattening your stone. And just last week, I sharpened a Masamoto KS that has been dulled on the brick on the Trocero 3000, and I stropped it, and I was able to get a score on the Edge On Up PT50A according to Edge On Up's sharpness level sheet. Anything under 200 is considered razor sharp. So I was able to get a knife razor sharp using 1 stone that has not been flattened in over 60 sharpenings and a strop. If you are just a hobbyist or a home cook, you really do not have to worry about getting a stone super flat because it doesn't make a difference. So myth number 5 is kind of a big one. It's this one. It's people saying that you have to sharpen a knife a certain way or it won't get sharp or it won't get sharpened properly. The point of my videos, the point of what I do here is I am experimenting with different techniques, with different processes, and I simply report what works for me. This is how my channel started. 3 or 4 years ago, I was researching knives and sharpening techniques. And so I went to the forums like most people did. I Googled knife sharpening techniques, and I went to YouTube and I watched a number of videos and I read a bunch of forum threads, and they're all really saying the same thing. There are 3 or 4 authorities out there that are kind of preaching these processes that you have to follow. You have to flatten your stone. You have to sharpen at 12 degrees. You have to thin your knife. And when I went and bought certain stones, and I went to buy certain knives, and I tried different things, none of what I was finding out on my own time was actually matching up with what people were saying. So what is the take home from all of this? Well, I want to just press the point is knife sharpening is not that difficult. I'm being completely honest. If you can get over the fear of cutting yourself and scratching your knife, and I know the emotion of fear is very strong, and I don't want to downplay that. My only suggestion to you is start very slow and take your time. Don't rush it. Don't try anything crazy. And over time, you will get over that fear of cutting yourself. Physically, it is different. For most of us, we don't have anything we do in normal life where we hold a knife in a certain manner and we push and pull. So this movement may not be very natural for a lot of people. If you are able to text on your phone, if you're able to do a word search on YouTube, you can sharpen a knife. It's that easy. If there's one thing I want you to take from this video is that it doesn't take a special person to learn how to sharpen a knife. Anyone can learn to sharpen a knife if you are willing to try. Here is a question for you. Do you feel strongly for or against any of the arguments I have brought up in this video? If you do, please leave a comment. You guys know that I read all of my comments. I know that this video is gonna get a lot of heat, but that's the truth of it all. All right, guys, well, thank you so much for being here. I'll catch you in the next video.